Hi, my name is Jen Perry, and I'm going to be talking about the characteristics of autism spectrum disorder. The first area that I'm going to look at are the cognitive characteristics. Individuals with autism spectrum disorder score atypically in the following areas. So there's the theory of mind, which is the ability to attribute mental state of others. Executive functioning, which includes areas such as planning, self-control, organization, and also central coherence, which is the ability to determine an overall meaning from lots of different details. The study found that almost 1/3 of individuals have multiple cognitive deficits of those three. A different study, which looked at adults with ASD, found the largest impairments also in theory of mind and emotional perception and processing. But they also found some non-social cognitive characteristics with processing speed and verbal learning and memory being challenges. Some of the neurological characteristics that I researched, one article talked about 3 neurological comorbidities. The first one being different motor impairments. And the study talked about a neural basis for these deficits with the neural circuitry and reduced activity between the cerebellar and cortical regions. They also found that there was a high percentage of children with ASD who experienced sleep disorders. They had shorter total sleep time, greater slow wave sleep, and less REM sleep percentage. I've seen this in some of my students with autism who come to school really tired and complain that they didn't have a good night's sleep. They had trouble sleeping through the night. And then the last one is epilepsy and epileptic form or EEGs. Some of the behavioral characteristics that might be exhibited are narrow or extreme interests, aggression and self-injurious behavior, also the need for routine or resistance to change. In the school setting, when we see this with some of our students, if there's a special schedule or any type of drill, we make sure to make the students aware of the change so that there are no surprises during the school day when this happens. And also one of the diagnostic criteria for ASD is the restricted and repetitive behavior. This can be seen in stimming. Some examples of stimming that come from the different senses. For auditory, this could look like humming or repeated vocal sounds. For tactile, this could be tapping or hand movements. For visual, this could be staring off, gazing, or hand flapping in front of the eyes. For vestibular, this might be rocking, pacing, spinning. And for olfactory, this might be sniffing objects, putting objects in mouth, or licking. We use those oral chewies at school for some of our students who like to put non-food items in their mouth. And related to behavioral characteristics are the sensory characteristics. The second bullet point talks about Beal when she mentioned that reactions to sensory input can often be seen as misbehavior, such as defiance or hyperactivity, when in reality it's just the individual's way of responding to the sensory input. And it's mentioned that those with ASD have an atypical response to sensory input. This can be a hyper response or a hypo response or a mixed reaction going into between the hyper and the hypo, an overreaction or underreaction to different sensory input. And these sensory inputs could come from food or clothing, light, noise, touch, or pain. We've had some students have issues with masks and how they feel and finding the right one that doesn't bother them. And in relation to this, and going back to the repetitive behavior, stimming can be a way to soothe when sensory input is too much, or rev up if it's too low, or even just to block out stimuli completely. In terms of communication and language characteristics, 1/3 of individuals with ASD are nonverbal. And then this one quote I thought kind of sums up a lot of it, is that the mutual give and take nature of typical communication and interaction is particularly challenging for those with ASD. Some parts of communication, if you break it down, that can be challenging is one, the initiation part. We have students who will not engage in conversation unless they have someone else initiates with them. And then the actual engagement part of the conversation. So when an individual has difficulty recognizing facial expressions or recognizing emotions, also if there's an impairment with social eye contact, that just makes the engagement part in the conversation more challenging. Also, the responding and interacting, when there's a narrow focus on the own interest or difficulty with taking turns, abnormal pitch and tone can all contribute to difficulties with responding or interacting with someone else. So those are just some characteristics. I have the references that I used from different studies and journals that I included in the PowerPoint on this slide as well as this slide. Thank you very much.